right. So I'm just going to get started with this. This is going to be a whole thing because I want to go through how to do an audit and then how to set up a strong SEO plan for a local restaurant, right? And I think restaurants, right, have this interesting dynamic where if you can get in the top searches for your categories, right, then you can get a ton of upside from that. But you need to be in the top, right? And so we want to look at what can we do. We want to audit this business. I'm going to audit a specific business. We're going to go through and look at all of the pieces of this. And then we might look at some of the competitors, right? And then we're going to go through and make a game plan step by step with how to audit and how to execute on a business like this. And make no mistake, restaurants have a ton of potential. People are always looking for restaurants. But if they don't know who you are when they do searches, they're not even going to, right? They can't even consider you. So even though there is a lot of consideration in restaurants, you need to be considered to be considered. So let's jump into this. So you can see we have the name of the restaurant here that I'm going to go through. And we're going to start by looking at the map. And here I just was digging a little bit on this to kind of set up. If I do a search for this, you can see that this location pops up. This is not the location that we are, even though this is the other location for the business, and we will talk about this, right? This is not the location that we want to focus on. This is location number 2 or location number 1, which is doing pretty well. But we can already see what's happening here. No matter what I do with this search, that is all that's showing up. Even though there is another location, let's see here. Looks like there's a food truck. I don't know that that is related. I don't think so, but that's a question we want to ask. Okay. And then we have this other location, right, that I cannot get to show up. So this is really interesting. And it has a slightly varied name, which shouldn't be a huge deal, but it may play into, so we want to make this note, not showing up on search. For the name. Okay. So this is just kind of going to be my primary notes here that I'm going to be making, and then we'll go through some of the stuff. So right away, I can see some things. So let's just really quick, let's grab the phone number here. Okay, we have our phone number, we have our address, and then let's grab the website link as well. Because this will help us with some of this information that we want to get. So what I'm looking to just figure out first is, are these different? Do they have different information? Or are they using the same information? Because if they are, that's going to be part of the reason that this is happening the way that it is. So now let's go to our other location that we know is showing up very easily. Oh, look at that. Now it's giving it to me as a second option. That's quite interesting. So we have the name of this. Okay, we have the address. Throw that in there. And then we will grab, okay, so it does have a separate phone number, so that's good. But I believe they're going to the exact same website page, which shouldn't be a huge issue, but it can affect Google figuring out that they are separate. So here we go with our locations. All right, so now we have this information. So we're going to be focusing on this second location, and we're going to go through and figure out how are they ranking. So first of all, right off the bat, this location, their first location, is really crushing the search, I believe. So we can see that this first location that's doing really well, already I can tell you it has the word Mexican in it. And I don't know many people search for a taqueria, but I think Mexican food is probably a big search. And this location is likely to show up for that. But with this information, let's kind of keep diving into this and breaking this down. So what I want to do next is I want to do a few GeoGrid searches here on both of these locations for a few just general keywords that we might be targeting. So let's take the first location and let's put this in to our Google search. Okay, here we go. And then let's just say, let's see here. We want to say Mexican restaurant. That makes sense. I think that's a good one. That's probably where they're going to want to dominate, right? So let's go over here. Let's put this in a 2-mile range. That's a pretty big area. But that'll give us a really good look here at this. Okay. And then while that shouldn't take too long, then we can run this. So this one we can see here for Mexican food. I mean, that's a pretty good area to be dominating in, but you know, they're not ranking it all in these other areas. That being said, this might be a pretty good amount. 14%, right? So now let's repeat this. And let's do this same thing for this bar and talk, this other location. And let's see how that one is lining up. So we'll say search Mexican restaurant 2-mile. I believe that's what I did, right? So, all right. So here is where, right, our second location is at 1% for Mexican food. And if let's just do this one more time. Let's do a 1-mile. I shouldn't be doing such a big, that's what I should have done. I want to see how this one is doing. So I'll do a 2-mile, 13 by 13 for this search for Mexican restaurant. And they were at 14%, whereas the second location was at 1%. And then we can see here when we dole it down a little bit. So in their surrounding area, they're doing pretty well, but I think we could really shift out. I mean, we should be able to cover a lot more area, at least be in the top searches, right? Or in the top 5 for a while. But let me just make this note. So 1%. Okay. And then I'll add this little note here. Okay, and then maybe let's see if we can find so here's the interesting part, right? They are trying to rank for sports bar. So now let's try that. So I think just right off the bat, if I am these guys, I am asking myself, is my sports bar name attracting enough business and enough people to make that worth it for me to be targeting that over the other search of Mexican food, Mexican restaurant? Because we can see that that's a 14 times difference. And even with that, even with sports bar in their name, they aren't ranking very well outside of their area. And I've been to this restaurant somehow just by happenstance when I was choosing this. It seems I've been here, and I thought that was interesting. So just really quick, I can see where people are outranking us. So, here's a sports bar, right? Twin Peaks, a bar, a restaurant, a bar, then a sports bar. Okay, restaurant, then a sports bar, hooligans, pub. So I don't think that is hurting us too much. Let's go to let's see what the customer, the client, the person here, right? So Mexican restaurant, right? So boom, right away, we have a problem, right? The categories are wrong, right? So if I come down here and I go, let's add a couple lines up here to categories. This location is only labeled as a Mexican restaurant. So here we have a Mexican restaurant that is a sports bar that has put sports bar in their name in order to rank better for sports bar, but doesn't have a category of sports bar, has taken Mexican restaurant out of their name, right? But is putting that as their primary category with no secondary categories related to being a bar. So boom, there's your reason why we're ranking so low, right? Easy. That's it. They're not even categorized properly. So let's go then to our other location really quick. Do I have that pulled up? Okay. Let's go here really quick. Actually, I need to go to the map, to the GeoGrid, because it'll actually tell me all of our categories, not just the one. So here, same thing, Mexican restaurant, right? But now it makes sense because you're trying to target yourself as a Mexican restaurant, right? And is this a bar is my question. So let's just see. So they also offer delivery. The other location I saw does not offer delivery. Okay, so is that correct? That we need to check on that. So this is just a lot of Google business profile things. Delivery offered. Delivery not offered. Wow. I mean, that's just a huge thing. So these are both labeled as Mexican restaurants, but this one is going for a bar. Now, this second location meant to be a bar. Let's see if we can find any pictures. The other one has an actual bar. Like this one looks like it actually does have that same bar. Let's try really quick on the menu. Maybe there's some pictures that give us some more insight. Now, obviously, it's just probably a question for the owner. It doesn't appear to be. So maybe, maybe cool. So we want to ask this question, right? Is this a bar too? Okay. Okay, cool. So we've really discovered some interesting information just right off the bat. I think this, I can understand that if they're trying to target different people, are they trying to overlap? Are they trying to target different people? Are they trying to target the same people? Okay. So I think that's an interesting question that we want to ask here. So now I know they've run into some issues. They have a 4.2, talking with, that might be something to look into. I want to see if they're responding to the negative reviews. So, yeah, I don't know. Looks like they're still getting some, one negative review. So this one is, okay. Lowest rating. Okay. A week ago. Let's go through the newest. A day ago, 5. So I'm not some kind of, restaurant review expert here. So I think I would want to go through and figure out, where are we in relation to other people, and how do we get our score up? Are there some things we can do there? I think in restaurants, you're going to get negative reviews. I mean, a 4.2 isn't awful, right? I think a 4.4, 4.5 is probably where we want to get to. But let's just put review number really quick. And then let's put review score. And let's do both of these really quick. Let's do both of these. So our number one has a 114 at a 4.2. Okay. And then our other location is a 4.4 with 765. So yeah, I mean, if the other location is doing really well with a 4.4, I think that gives us some insight into where we need to be, right? That's not a huge jump, but can definitely be improved. So sports bar search, it doesn't matter. Basically, we'll just put 1% again. Wrong category. So, all right. I think that gives us a bit of information. So now what I was saying was when I was doing a search for this Metzli, it was not even showing. This is what it was doing every time, right? It would just go to this location every time. See, it doesn't even let the other one show up. So what this means to me is Google is, for some reason, not fully grasping that these are different and that the other one kind of even exists. So I think this is where we can get involved in the website and trying to make sure that that is also working. So let's move over to the website and then maybe we'll do a little bit more keyword research. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious for this if I'm asking myself keywords, right? Like Mexican food, Mexican restaurant. Let's, okay, before I pop to the website, let's do a little bit more keyword research. I think that's pretty smart here. So let's grab a domain overview here, tool, and let's grab, let's grab a keyword tool. And what I want to do is I just want to try to see what has the most search volume in my local area. So I'm just going to include the words Boise into this. So California Mexican food in Boise. Okay, that I think that's an actual, I don't think that's a location. Calimex? Maybe it is. Is that a is, okay. There you go. So that is a restaurant. Potentially, that's what people are wanting. So I'm going to exclude California here. And let's see here. So we have 1,000 searches for Mexican food Boise, Idaho. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we're looking at about, let's say I like to take kind of the top. So we're looking at about 1,800 there. So let's try restaurants. I'm going to pull this actually quickly. Let's just drop this in. Of course, it's going to go in wrong. Let's try this. So I can export these, right? Okay, it's not going to let me. Whatever, that's fine. So we can say Mexican food has 1,000, right? Has a 36 difficulty. And that's really only all I care about here. So then we'll say Mexican food Boise and Mexican food Boise, Idaho. Okay, 880, 40 difficulty. So they aren't actually in Boise. Let's really quick try this. Let's try Meridian. So Mexican food Meridian, Idaho. Okay, 880, 720. So that actually is probably a better, those are going to be the better keywords. Sometimes those you don't get those, right? Sometimes those are going to be too low. So 36 and 41, which is pretty similar. And then Mexican food Meridian and Mexican food. Okay, so that gives us a good idea of the search volume. And then what I want to do is I want to check this against Mexican restaurant to see which one is actually the higher, right? Mexican restaurants. That's what it wants me to do. So 590 and 590. So Mexican food is the better search, is the higher restaurant. Meridian, Idaho. So, and then what did we say? They were both 590, 35, and 36. All right. So this is going to give me a lay of the land. So now I really want to know, does anyone search for like, let's try the map first. This is where I like to get Mexican sports bar. Okay. Yes, it shows up. So that's not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, there's 1,000 searches for Mexican sports bar in the whole United States, right? So that's not going to be, that might be a secondary search, but that's not going to move the needle for us. So sports bar, and then now let's get that Meridian again. And let me just make sure. Yeah, nothing there. So sports bar in Meridian, Idaho has 140. Sports bar, and a 34 difficulty. So I love that it keeps switching my. So that, that in Meridian, Idaho, sports bars in sports bars in and sports bars Meridian. So I think I'll just keep this. So we know, right? It's not one, it's like 300, right? That's good. So this really gives me an idea. What's the best to target if we want the volume? And that would be this Mexican food, Meridian. So that's where we want to be. And generally I'm using Meridian here. I just want to target Mexican food or Mexican food near me or Mexican food. Meridian is kind of going to be, that should kind of fall in, but we can definitely target that as well. So I think this is great. We have a really good lay. We have some big problems that are just kind of glaringly obvious that we can start to take care of. And now we want to go, now we have some target keywords, right? We have an idea, we could do some competitor research here. I think that would be something I would want to do after all of this, just gathering the lay of the land. But for now, I think we found some really interesting issues. So with this, now we talked about the website being a potential problem because both locations, right, are listed here and they're linked back. But see, there's another one. So look, they linked back to this one, but this one wasn't up when they made the link. So they put the address. So this doesn't actually link to the Google business profile. So that is going to hurt. Okay. The locations page or the locations is here, right? So these aren't on separate pages. So one note I would want to say is we need to separate pages, link to the Amity location from the page. So that would be a really good idea. What I would do is I do not like messing with what is working. So this one is working really well. So I would leave that here. And what I would do is create a second location page for this location specifically and then use that. So we do have the addresses here. That's really smart. They have a mobile app. That's interesting, right? So that's not a bad idea. Locations, once again, just takes us here. Menus. So they have different menus. Okay, drinks. So they do have drinks. That doesn't mean this is okay, gallery, catering, work, contact, order. So now we can talk about things that we could add to this. I would just be blowing this thing up with content, right? So if I'm going down here and now we're talking about the website, I love how organized this all is, right? Let's see really quick. Let's chuck this into SEMrush and see what we get. So they have an 8 authority score with 425 organic search. So that is not too bad. Let's see where that is coming from. So people are directly searching for them. It gets about 50 searches every month. And people are searching directly for them, which even further gives you this idea, right? That people aren't even knowing there's a second location. And let me, ask yourself this question, right? Is a 5-minute drive, a 10-minute drive really a big deal to you, right? Especially if you don't know there's another location, right? You could be driving right past this location to get to this one because they're different names. You might not even think Metzli it's unique enough, right? But at the same time, I would be like, I don't know, maybe that's a super common word that I'm just stupid, right? And I don't even know that they're the same restaurant unless I actually see that logo. So we really need to separate these out, especially if people are doing a search like this, right? you have two menus. So if I come into Google and I do a search for this, let's try this, right? Boom, we have this huge thing, right? Awesome. It's telling us, hey, here it is on Chinden, this first location. It's right here. This is what you want, right? And they both have the same. So I think this is a really interesting question and something I would want to dive deeper into. But my guess is we can also take a look here at if they have any JSON, any schema. Because let's see here. So we have a script here for JSON that is error. Okay, so that's not doing us any favors. It's like a Joomla site. That's it. So we can use schema here to tell Google that we have two locations and here's where they are and here's why they're different. And then when people search for this, it's more likely to show up as something with multiple locations. Let me just really quick, let's do, what happens if I search for, trying to think of something that wouldn't have, right now, in error. See, it shows up with all of the locations because Google knows there's all of these locations. So this is what we need to be trying to figure out and trying to move towards is how do we get all of these locations to show up, right? So, okay, great. So this might be pretty unique problem, but I think this does give you generally a really strong look into what you can do if you want to help a restaurant rank. First, you need to go through and just figure out what are the keywords you're trying to rank for. Where are we at today with the Google Business Profile? Where are we at today with the website? So for the website, like I said, we want to add schema to separate locations, right? We want to add separate location pages. Okay, we want to add cities. So they don't have any of the cities they serve, right? So I would add city pages to talk about the other cities that they serve, right? So add city pages. And then maybe we can add services. So we can add service pages, right? If one of them's a bar and one of them's a Mexican restaurant, we can add those pages and talk about those, right? We can talk about, hey, if you're looking for a bar, if you're looking for this, if you're looking for that, right? We have two locations. So we want to add those service pages just like we would for anything else. And then I would say testimonials, content, etc. We really want to hype this up. I think people fail to use their website as a way to really hype up their business and talk about how good they are at things. And just this should make them look like they are the coolest people in the whole entire world, right? So I think there's more we can do with this website to just build it out and put more information and get people who are already coming here to give more ways for people to find this if they're searching, right? Like I'm saying, there's nothing on here talking about how we have a bar, right? Like we're a sports bar. So I think that's a really interesting way. And if the sports bar is only linked to that one area, then we can actually put schema, which is this code for Google, for local businesses, and for other things. We can actually say this sports bar page is directly related to our location over here, our second location, right? So now on top of all this, right, we're going to know what our target is. Now we can go like, I would assume they're not doing any kind of, on either location really. Yeah, so they're doing a good job at getting photos and videos, but they're not doing any kind of Google Business Profile posts, right? We don't have our products and services listed on here and linking, right? So there's a lot we can do there as well, just with the regular. They're doing a good job at going in and responding to reviews really well. But these are all kind of the things that I think would move the needle for this restaurant. I guess it's kind of a shame that the video ended up being so kind of obvious. Like, look, your Google Business Profile needs to be audited like this, and you need to make sure that you're targeting the correct categories, and that you do that in a specific way, right? You can't pull your efforts against each other. You can't be a Mexican restaurant but that labeled as a sports bar, right? That's just gonna fight itself. So I think there's some really good things that we can do here with this business. And I hope this gave you some insight if you're in the restaurant business. And if you want to talk about your restaurant and where you're in, where you need to see this information, how does this match up to you? I think this is definitely something that we can talk to you more about. Josh at brightbeamseo.com. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow.